صحابته ومن والاه. The peaceful atmosphere that we find at moments that the Quran is recited cannot be explained. There's a lot of things we do in life we try to comfort ourselves with. We take a nap, we get a good meal, we sit with loved ones. Some are unfortunately tested with music and other types of entertainment. The outcome's always the same. Once you're done, you're still the one that started. Your heart has not settled, your soul has not found its peace, and your nerves are still at edge, and your eyes just cannot close. Then you sit and read the Quran or listen, and more likely than not, the majority of us don't understand what was read and what was said. It's not always about the tone and the voice, but it's just those words that find their way through our souls. Then all of a sudden, we forget the world, and we're in tune with the hereafter and in tune with the upper supreme power that we all urge to see one day. That's the fact. I recall one time, I was invited by a psychiatrist to visit his patients at a hospital in Tennessee. And he said, I bring religious individuals from time to time. I'd like you to come visit my patients. And I went there, and you can't talk to mentally ill individuals because they won't understand what you're saying. So I wondered, what is he bringing me for? It's not for prayers, but we don't do it that way. So I figured, why not just read the Quran al-Kareem? I was called the next day, and he said, we found them all going to sleep, or most of them go to sleep last night before we even came around to give them their medicine. Do you mind coming back again? Absolutely. I go again, the same results. He said, can you explain what kind of music you were chanting to them? I said, of course I can. I was chanting something called the soul. He said, oh, soul music? I said, no, the soul. قَدْ أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ رُوحًا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا. I have revealed down to you a soul of our command. I told them I was reciting to them such powerful words that if it was to be revealed on the mountains would not have been able to stand. But Allah Ta'ala had softened the hearts in our bodies to where it connects. And we can only find peace with that because He said, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. That's the reality. It created from a kafir, a believer. At the time, he did not declare his faith. Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira listens to the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam reciting the Quran al-Kareem, and all of a sudden, he couldn't control himself. He merged into whatever the recitation was, and all of a sudden, the Quran became one at that moment. And when he returned, it was evident by the look of his face that he is a different man. And his companions, his friends said, Abu Khalid has came back to a different face. Have you converted to Muhammad's faith? He said, no, absolutely not. But you look different, you're peaceful. So what do you think we should say about Muhammad and his Quran? He said, I don't know. Because إِنَّ لَهُ لَحَلَاوَةً وَإِنَّ عَلَيْهِ لَطَلَاوَةً وَإِنَّ عَلَاهُ لَمُذْنِبٌ وَإِنَّ أَسْفَلَهُ لَمُغْنِبٌ وَإِنَّهُ يَعْلُمُ وَلَا يُعْلَمُ. Not one scholar has ever described the Quran as he did, and he was a kafir. There's sweetness to it, he said. And it's like a dew that comes into it. And if you look at the branches of it, it's very fruitful, and the roots are very deep, and it dominates, and nothing can dominate it whatsoever. But Rasulullah one time was reading around the Kaaba, and there was a group of non-Muslims there. Kuffar, right? They were sitting there, and he was starting to read, one najm إِذَا هَوَى. And he continued reading. مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى علمه شديد القوى ذو مرة فاستوى وهو بالأفق الأعلى ثم دنا فتدلى فكان قاب قوسين أو أدنى فأوحى إلى عبده ما أوحى. And he continued reading and reading. And they're listening. Not one walked away. Until the end of the surah. فَاسْجُدُوا لِلَّهِ وَاعْبُدُوا. They all did sujood. They all did sujood. They were not Muslims. Wallahi, they did sujood, brothers and sisters. Wallahi, they did. They could not control themselves but to do sujood. A Bedouin heard someone read the Quran, okay? And as soon as he heard it, he did sujood for that qari. He said, what are you doing? He said, someone that can speak like that is worthy to be worshipped. Allah. Quran, it's something else. It makes from the non-speaking Arabic individuals like yourself get the sweetness of someone that would read like him. Or a man from Far East who was born from a country that does not speak Arabic, you will hear him read the Quran as good as that man right there who was actually born speaking Arabic. They're both talented and both the same. And the Quran comes out of their mouth like it just came down from Jibreel. There's nothing like it. Tones differ. Methods differ. But at the end, the feeling is the same. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to read it in the midst of nights and rule it in our lives and during the days and lives. May it protect our children and speak on our behalf when we stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May He call upon us and say, read and rise, for your place in Jannah is when you finish your recitation. May all of us be eased to read Surah Al-Mulk at night, so He can come and argue on our behalf. Yawm al-'ardi alayh. Say Ameen, ya Rabbi. But the Quran at the same time creates two types of people. One, mu'min, and two, kafir. The same book creates two types of individuals. The believers and those who are not. وَهُوَ عَلَيْهِمْ عَمَى وَلَا يَزِيدُهُمْ إِلَّا نُفُورًا وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ اشْمَأَزَّتْ قُلُوبُ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ الَّذِينَ مِن دُونِهِ إِذَا هُمْ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ. You know the difference? Because it says, if Allah is mentioned, they run away from it. Like we know, some of them used to put their finger to their ear so they don't hear. But the Quran can bring life. When do you know? If the Quran that's being read, alive in the people that are breathing. If the Quran that's being read, alive in the people that are reading it. Because it brings life. لِمَا يُحْيِيكُمْ. That's what Allah Ta'ala said. لِمَا يُحْيِيكُمْ. To what brings life. And tonight, as this Quran is bringing life to us, we want to bring life to those people in Haiti that are suffering. They're suffering. They are. It's not a myth. You guys all know that. I've seen it with my own eyes. I saw people in Haiti that have nothing to wear. And water they cannot drink or should not be drank. And barely a meal to eat. And lines that started at 3 a.m. at that clinic that I was at, waiting for us to open at 6 a.m. And they walked from many, many miles away just to get there to be screened. And the best we were able to do at that time were give them Tylenols and aspirins and some kind of antibiotics that they thought that they would be saved with it. But that's all they had. And it was to them life. For us, might not, but for them it is. So as I ask Allah by His names and attributes that the Quran brings life to our lives, we want to bring life to theirs through our iman, through our faith, through our belief, and through our generosity. We believe no wealth increases because of sadaqah. We believe that Allah will reimburse us. We believe that our sadaqah will shield us from hellfire. We believe that sadaqah is burhan. It will be the evidence of how we distinguish Yawm al-Qiyamah between sincere and unsincere. We believe that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the most generous man ever. We believe that Umar gave half of his wealth. We believe that Abu Bakr gave all of it. We believe that Khadija dedicated her life and wealth from A to Z for this deen. We believe that some of the Sahaba did not just bring wealth to this deen, they also gave life for it. We believe that Yawm al-Qiyamah, our hasanats will be multiplied because of our sadaqats. And our scale on the right hand will be very heavy, that overweighs all the sayyats because of our hasanat sadaqats. Why? Because when we give a dime or a nickel or a penny or a dollar, it reaches the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before it reaches the hands of those who are in need. And Allah has promised us that He will nurture it and grow it for us. He will multiply it. He said, I have given you your wealth, but can you lend it back to me? Listen, I have given it to you, can you lend it back to me? And if you lend it back to me, I will return it to you multiple times. مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يُقْرِضُ اللَّهَ قرضا حسنا فيضاعفه له أضعافا كثيرة والله يقبض ويبسط وإليه ترجعون. We believe that He has said to us in the Hadith al-Qudsi, oh my servant, give and I will give you. Don't you all believe in that? We do. He said, Ya Abdi anfiq unfiq alayk. We believe that we don't have to be rich to give. Because the Rasul ﷺ approached Bilal ibn Rabah, who was poor and had nowhere to go. And he said, Ya Bilal, anfiq infaq man la yakhsha min dhil arshi iqlala. Give in a way where you do not fear poverty because of the one above this throne. We know that if He wants you to get rich, be and it is. And if He wants to take everything that you have thought that you earned because of your hard work, it can go like that also. We believe that. We have no doubt. We read it in the Quran, we hear it in the Quran. The Rasul ﷺ spoke to us about that. He said one day about himself, I wish I had equivalent to the world of wealth. For what? He says, I can give it this way and this way and this way. He didn't want to keep it, he wanted to give. He would receive a lot of sadaqahs, and by the end of the day, nothing is in front of him. And he would go home, and his wife would say, he would ask his wife, is there any food for us to eat? And she'd say, no. Why did you not bring something with you? He said, why did you not remind me? It was a simple life that he used to have. A man that we dearly love, a man that we have surrendered our faith into his hands, that He'll take us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He used to wake up in the morning and ask his wife, do we have food? No? Okay, I'm fasting. Simple. Then, an hour later or so, she would call on him and say, now I have food. He said, okay, now I'm coming home and eat. He would eat when there is, and he would be okay if there isn't. In a month or two will pass, and now a fire will be lit in his house. And I know, by the will of Allah Ta'ala and His grace, that our families will not suffer like that, inshallah. But we should also be part of those that are already suffering so we can lift them. We can lift them up. We buy our place in Jannah. Not through our salats. Not through our salats. That's siyams. That's part of it. But we actually buy it because we're willing to give the best that we have. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You will not reach that level of birr until you give from what you love. Is there anyone here that wants to reach that level of birr? So he's going to give from what he has and what he loves and raise his hands for $5,000 for our brothers and sisters in Haiti. Do we have one brother, inshallah, that wants to give $5,000? مَا نَقَصَتْ مَالٌ مِنْ صَدَقَةٍ. You can give it in installments, brothers and sisters. Wallahi. Allow this faith to settle in your heart by you showing Allah Ta'ala that I believe and I trust. Do we have someone, inshallah, that's willing to give $5,000, inshallah? Can we have just one brother? Barakallahu feekum. Allahumma yassir ya Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma sahil. There it is over there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Enlighten your face on the day that we want our faces to be brightened and enlightened, inshallah. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Allahi ma naqasa malun min sadaqah. You know, Abdul ibn Auf, he heard the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he heard through Aisha that the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says he will be amongst the last people to enter Jannah. And he's one of the 10 that will enter Jannah, but he'll be amongst the last. So he said, Ya al-Mu'mineen, why? She said, because you'll be answering to all the wealth that you have accumulated. He said, if that's the case, I give half of it away. Half of it away. Uthman received a huge caravan. And the merchants came from left to right, and they were giving him 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1 profit. He said, I was given more. They said, who will give you more? This is all the merchants that we know in the city of Medina. No one can give you more than that. He said, Allah gave me 10 to 1. Do we have a second with $5,000? Multiply your wealth in this dunya and rise above inshallah, all Yawm al-Qiyamah. Do we have a second of $5,000? Barakallah fi. You can give it in installments, brothers and sisters, inshallah. And sister, you can donate too. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Ya ma'ashara al-nisa, tasaddaqna. وَالْمُتَصَدِّقِينَ وَالْمُتَصَدِّقَاتِ. So do we have a second of $5,000, inshallah? Going once? Do we have a second? Going twice? Barakallah fi. Let yourself, inshallah, listen to the voice of good. Don't listen to that voice that creates doubts and hesitations. الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء والله يعدكم مغفرة منه وفضلا والله واسع عليم. Shaitan, he's telling you, you can't. You're not wealthy enough. But Allah Ta'ala is telling you, you give and I promise you abundance and I promise you forgiveness. Last call.